Hi, welcome to Revenue Marketing Television, the CMO Insight Series. I'm your host, Jeff Pedowitz, President and CEO of the Pedowitz Group. Today we have Karen Steele, Chief Marketing Officer of LeanData. Karen, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jeff. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you. So you've had an awesome career. You've worked at some great companies, LeanData now, Marketo shortly before that. What have been, I guess, some of the biggest moments as you look back over your career that have kind of, if you think about like arcs and trajectories as you've like really grown in your leadership role, can you think of some different times over the last 10 or 20 years that really served as an inspiration for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had the good fortune, Jeff, of working for startups like LeanData, mid-sized companies, both public and private, and also very large brands like VMware. And in every one of those, by the way, there are always interesting challenges and opportunities for a marketer, whether that be launching new products, whether that be repositioning the entire company, whether it be exiting out of a product line, hosting a major conference, which is stressful, and we're coming up on one of those now. But I would tell you that, going through just recently, I was at Marketo, and we took the company from public to private. Private equity firm Vista bought the company, and it was about transforming to the new Marketo, and it was a very positive effort, but it took the entire marketing organization to sort of turn that ship. And it was very rewarding at the end because I think we kept what was great about Marketo as the core of the new company, and really moved the company forward as a private entity. And that's an experience you don't get every day, going from private to public. And so that's recent and top of mind. But it was a lot of fun. I'm very proud of the team that worked on that. And I'm proud of, what Marketo is today and where they're going in the future.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, let's talk about that for a couple minutes, because you're right that it doesn't happen as much, right? Everyone's typically trying to go the other way, go private to public. But when you go public to private, so Marketo has been infamous for its ability to drive demand, right? Like 90% of every dollar going towards marketing and having such an amazing marketing engine. So when you guys went from public to private, what were some of the major things that, as a marketing team, you changed?
Yeah, well, it probably started a little bit ahead of that because I was brought in to run corporate marketing. So you're 100% right. Marketo is known for its chops in its demand engine and was incredibly effective and efficient at that. So even just my joining and building a team on the corporate side, focusing on brand and thought leadership and communications and a whole host of customer marketing and a whole host of other things meant that there was a shift in the business and a shift in marketing where, the demand engine was critical, but there were a whole bunch of other things that we needed to balance. And so it sort of started earlier. And then when Vista bought the company out, I think one of the things that became clear was the customer focus, because obviously you want to keep your customers happy and secure that you're still the same company, the same brand that they bought from, that they trust. And so a big emphasis on the customer side, a big emphasis on how do you position the new brand, the new Marketo? How do you position the strength and credibility of the new executive team? Because it was almost a complete, change out in terms of the overall exec team, CEO down. And so there was a lot of work with influencers like yourself, with analysts, with press, to just convince people that we were the same heart and soul Marketo that we always were, and that the brand was bigger than anything around us, and that was never going to change. And so the company that Phil Fernandez and John Miller built in the early days, the core of that still remained. The product and the customer base still remained. And so I think keeping that strength was really the focus. And most of what we did was focused around that and customer intimacy.
That's an interesting word, customer intimacy. So now, because you have worked at both small and larger, is it harder to keep customer intimacy as you get bigger? And how do you maintain that from, an operational point of view?
Yeah, well, I guess I would juxtapose. So I had the customer marketing team at VMware, and I've had customer marketing teams at smaller companies, including I have one person here at LeanData. I think it really starts the way I think about it philosophically, and this hasn't changed from a big company perspective or a small company perspective. There's sort of three key ingredients that make up sort of customer intimacy in my mind. I call it the triple A. It's advocacy, advisory, and adoption. And there's a whole bunch of things under each of those. But first, getting close to your customer means you have to build those relationships. And so putting customers in advisory seats, whether that be user groups or customer advisory boards, or just feedback teams where you're listening to customers on a regular basis, not just your frontline CSMs, but your marketers and your salespeople that want to learn from what customers are doing. That's sort of part one. The advocacy piece is critical. Building relationships, building references, using your customers as ambassadors, whether that be telling stories on your behalf through the press, through speaking engagements, using your customers to create a community. I mean, Marketo is one of the best communities out there called Marketing Nation. We're building one here at LeanData called OpStars. And so building a community around your customers is so critical to get the feedback, to share best practices, to help these customers sort of move their careers forward. So that's critical. And then the other piece is adoption. And, it's fine to sell a product, but how do you make sure, particularly as you're selling add-on products in the future, that customers are using those and they're happy and they're getting the value out of those? So having the processes built around that is paramount. I mean, in the SaaS business, of course, you have a customer for a year and they have to renew. Otherwise we spend a whole bunch of money to get them and you don't have anything in return after 12 months. So there's a whole cycle and process. It requires a team, but I don't think it's any different having one person at LeanData than having a team of, I don't know how many I had, 15 or 20 on the customer marketing team at VMware. It's still the same philosophy and focus.
Yeah, I think in some ways, when you're in a SaaS business, it does almost force you to think about that lifetime value of a customer because the whole financial valuation is predicated on it, right? And you're spending a lot of time to drive that renewal. In other businesses, I think everyone cares about their customer, right? But I'm not sure that the same focus is there for driving the adoption, the awareness, the advocacy.
Agreed.
So what do I mean, in your opinion, do you think that marketers spend too much time really maybe on the front, on the top of the funnel? Should they be spending more time and effort on customer expansion, adoption, advocacy?
Yeah, I think it depends on the business. I can't say it's 50-50, but I would say that, we do spend a lot of time on new logos and we do spend a lot of time on upsell, cross-sell. Also, as we're entering larger enterprise accounts, you sell into one division and then you move to another division. So there's sort of the land and expand mode as well. And so I think it depends on the business, but both are important. And I think any good marketing organization has to be, scalable to do both new customer, new logo acquisition, as well as upsell, cross-sell.
Good advice. So you've managed all kinds of people, small teams, big teams, medium teams. How's that changing? Is your management style changed over the years? Are the people that you're hiring different?
So I guess a couple of things. I think the talent pool has changed over the years. So obviously there's lots of millennials out there now that are very, digitally savvy, which is fantastic. So I've had the pleasure of, picking up some of that type of talent. In terms of my own leadership style, I would say that, when you're at a larger company, you have a bigger team. It is by definition, you have to, you have to let go of certain things and you have to let the team run on their own. In smaller teams, sometimes by necessity, you have to be a little more hands-on, and that's not to micromanage. It's more because you need the hands because you just have fewer people doing the work. So I think the skill has changed out there. I think the marketing talent pool is actually very exciting right now because I think there's a whole set of skills. I'm a huge fan of what Greenfig is doing in the digital marketing sort of micro education program. So we're teaching people in college now how to do social programs, how to run digital campaigns, how to look at web personalization, how to manage your data strategy. I mean, these things didn't exist when we were all learning this back in the early days, when direct mail was king or queen. And so it's an exciting time to be looking at talent as a marketer.
So when you said that, I was thinking about my first job. I had an internship at a bank, and it was sending out catalogs. There was no email, there was no internet.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny. I had to get it right? Because it's really expensive to send out a catalog, even then. It's
expensive. I mean, I started my career at Apple in the early days, and I mean, this is back in the 80s, just to date myself, and I had multi-million-dollar budgets for printing collateral or direct mail pieces, which is just crazy when you think about it. Now, none of those budgets exist because everything's online. And so, yeah, the world has changed, and but it's a fun time to be a marketer.
So how have you changed? If you were going to go back and visit that younger version of yourself at Apple, what advice would you give you?
Wow. It's a great question. I guess just stay true to yourself and what fulfills you. I mean, I had the good fortune of sitting in pretty much every function of marketing and sort of learning the ropes, which I don't know that everybody gets that chance over their career. And so I'm probably unique in that I'm very multidisciplined. I certainly have a sweet spot, but I really had to sort of stick to my core. And so I skew a certain way, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so I think that a lot of people try and retool themselves, to be different for a particular job. I think that's just a tough thing to do. I think that in your heart of heart, you're really good at something, you're really passionate about something, just stick with it. And I think I learned to do that. I think sometimes I strayed, in the early days, but I think over the last 10, 15 years of my career, I've been very true to the core of what I do best.
Good advice. So now, especially over the last 10 years, you've worked at some of the hottest marketing technology companies, and you're at one now. A lot of talk about technology. It's helped marketers, but there's also so much of it. You have kind of more of like a strategic, philosophical take on the role technology has been playing in marketing.
Well, I'm probably not going to say anything you haven't already heard, and I've listened to some of your other interviews, and so I'll probably echo what some of my peers are saying. I mean, it's a little overwhelming. If you follow Scott Brinker's, reports 5,000 plus MarTech apps, et cetera. Yeah, bigger and bigger and bigger. And honestly, I think that the biggest issue I have is that I think that marketers, and particularly younger marketers today, and sales teams, sales ops teams, try and solve every problem with technology, and not every problem needs to be solved with technology. So I think we put a lot of tools in our tool bag, and frankly, not all those tools get used. And LeanData and my team is guilty of that as any. And so I think you have to look really carefully at what you're buying, because all these tools are expensive. And you've got to train people on them. You've got to integrate them with other stuff. And so it's a big investment to bring a tool in-house. So, we have a steering committee here at LeanData that's comprised of our sales ops, our marketing ops, myself, our head of sales. So when we make any decision, even about renewals of existing tools, we sit down and say, okay, what's the value we're getting out of this? How well is it integrated? What could we be doing better, et cetera? And so I think if you're going to buy a lot of these tools, you just have to have checkpoints and make sure you're getting the ROI and getting people trained, because a lot of these tools become shelfware, and that's certainly not a good thing.
No, I like that. I think one of the things we're starting to see more is kind of this role of vendor management within marketing, because, as marketing not just manages its traditional agency and content vendors, but now it's managing technology vendors, much like IT and procurement does. They almost by necessity have to start developing more processes to manage these vendors, right? I mean, are they meeting their service level agreements? Are we getting a fair price? Are they upholding their contract value? Are they driving adoption versus just buying it to buy it? So we've seen it as an emerging function, at least on the bigger companies, and I think it's going to start working its way down more into marketing. So I guess you're kind of doing a quasi version of that, right? Your team, your committee is acting as kind of like a vendor management team.
Yes, we are. That's a very good point.
So now you're at LeanData, obviously very different than the last couple because you're on the smaller side. So what are some of the challenges that you're facing?
Well, it's, we're a fairly, in some ways we're known among the people that in the B2B sort of software tech world, we're very known because there's a lot of word of mouth and people buy us and they're very happy and they might move to a new company and the first thing they do is it's a hopscotch thing and they bring us with them again, which is fantastic. But the broader market, LeanData is not as well known. So certainly we have awareness challenges as a smaller company. And one of the things I did very early on when I joined is we stepped back and we looked at sort of the overall brand position, because it's very easy to look at LeanData and say, that's a tactical tool for lead routing. But there's a bigger value proposition. And so I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek, start with why. So one of the first things I did at LeanData, because I felt that we needed to explore this, was brought the executive team together and had an exercise where we did start with why and looked at vision, mission, brand promise. Why do you exist as a company? Whom do you serve? What is the strategic problem you solve, and what is the real value? And I think when you step back at any company and do that, it's always really revealing. And it certainly was for us, and it led to a brand transformation in terms of our market position. We tweaked the brand identity, actually more than tweaked, we completely changed the logo, but all for the right reasons, because we're more than a niche tool for lead routing. We're more strategic. We are a strategic data tool that sits between sales technology and marketing technology, and we connect people and data to help companies get to revenue faster. So that's certainly a different story than we help you do your lead routing or lead to account matching. So that's an important exercise that I think any company, and particularly startups, has to go through to really help with the awareness challenge, help with the education challenge, and have different and more strategic conversations with your buyers.
All right, well said. So exciting times ahead, and you guys got a big conference coming up, right? In a few weeks.
We do. It's a standalone conference. It's complimentary, and it's really the go-to place for the operations teams and their leaders. We expect about 1,500 this year. We're at the Mint in San Francisco. And we have 40 world-class sessions. We have workshops. We have networking. But it's really, a set of curated content that people don't get at Dreamforce. You don't get this kind of content. This is really for the operations professionals. And as I mentioned, OpStars, our goal is to make it a community. And so this is the start of it in a conference format. This is our third year. And it's my first conference to be leading OpStars and taking that wonderful asset forward. So 16, 17 sponsors that are super excited about it, and so are we.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations. And so happy to see all the success that you're having. And great to see LeanData totally transforming the marketplace. So thank you for being on the show, Karen.
Thank you, Jeff.
You bet.